It's Hullin Daf Amud Aleph, first line. We were trying to figure out what exactly the Mishnah meant by it. Everybody could slaughter, everything is slaughtered like that. Amar Yosef Yosef has a different answer. Rabbi Akiva is according to Rabbi Akiva. The Tanakh says, "Ki yirhag min mecha hamakom mashiach halag Hashem lekech lasum shemo sham v'zavachta mi bekorcha umitonecha." Rabbi Akiva says from the pasuk, "Lo ba'aktub ela asur ben lahen besar nahira." Teaches you that you cannot slaughter meat was killed by piercing instead of shechita. Shebatchila initially hu lahen besar nahira. Initially you killed the animal that I knew you wanted. Bishnechazu la'aretz when it's gone to lahen besar nahira you can't kill it by piercing. Now that we got exiled, you might think you'd be allowed to eat meat that was pierced. Like Hashanah, therefore we have to learn. You always have to slaughter. My community was machlokit. Maybe Akiva saw Rabbi Akiva holds Basar Tava Lo Tizar Klal. Now, the first opinion of Rabbi Ishmael, Rabbi Akiva disagrees. He says, no, he disagrees with him. He says, we were never asur to have regular meat. Rabbi Ishmael said, Basar Nechila Lo Yishri Klal. Rabbi Ishmael held, not like Rabbi Akiva, that we never pierced animals to eat. Okay, Rabbi Ishmael makes Rabbi Ishmael that it's what tells you to slaughter. Teaching you, we never slaughtered before. Rabbi Akiva, why is teaching Vishahat? Where it says, Ketushim Mishani, teach you regarding kadosh animals, they require shechita. Okay, Bishlam Rabbi Shmuel makes the Shmuel, Hanutib, Bakari, Shahid Lahem, you should slaughter for them. Seemingly, you always have to slaughter. Rabbi Akiva comes to Rabbi Gamai, son of Bakari, Hashem, do the bazuk. Yinahel Lahem, you should have mentioned piercing. The word says, Nahila Shalahen, Zahu Shehaftan. It's true that they used to pierce. Why is they slaughtered? Because that was their way of slaughtering, piercing the throat. Bishlam Rabbi Shmuel makes the Shmuel, Hanutib says, Hashachid bin Tabila, if someone slaughtered an animal that became a nevilah, or he pierced. We tore out the pipes. So you don't have to cover the blood because it wasn't slaughtered correctly. Seemingly, we can understand why piercing was mentioned as one of the invalidated slaughtering. Why would it be patur? Piercing was kasher. The Gemara says, however, it's true. It used to be, but used to be is a key word. When it was, now that's a sword, therefore it won't count. He says that meat for appetite was never asur. And that's what the says. Even the deer and the thing you could eat. Seemingly allowed to eat meat. According to you, it wasn't allowed. The Gemara says, the only time the Torah said you're not allowed to eat meat is meat that was offered from Mizbeach. But like a deer that's not offered from Mizbeach, was not asur. He has a question. If they brought meat of animals that they had killed by piercing, they entered it with them in Eretz Yisrael. Ma, what's halacha? Let eat it or not? Ema, now, when did that happen? When it was during the 7 years, they were conquering. Asha. Now, over there, when they were conquering, they're allowed to touch Tumah stuff. Nativ, non-kosher animals, rather. Nativ, ubatim milaim koltu. So if that's the case, they were able to eat bacon and pig while they were conquering Israel. So now if that's the case. For sure, they're allowed to keep pierced animals. So what was the question? The Gemara says, "Ella la'achmekam" was afterward. The Gemara says, answer, maybe during the 7 years. Usually, when it says loud, shalal, maybe only the stuff that belonged to the goyim. Did you lose your their own? Teko, no answer. Amar Baba says, "Shanita hakol shahatin lam shahatin." You told us the Mishnah, the part of Mishnah said all are slaughtered and we will always slaughter. What does it mean? Bakol shohatim al Mishnah. What is the hidush of we slaughter with anything? Whereas the we want to say ben betor ben misachli ben mikmishkani. You want to say oh you gotta slaughter with a piece of flint or glass or reed. Hadumi ad hanaktani. But the Mishnah teaches the last statement compared to the other Mishnah. Yeah, I'm not sure allowed to slaughter with these. High now, I'm sure allowed to slaughter other things as well. I'm not sure allowed to slaughter with these things. High now, because seemingly the first two statements are talking about things that are slaughtered, and the last one is about doing what's slaughtering. Doesn't make sense. The Gemara says, Elam Rabba says, anybody all can slaughter. Hadalatuya could include a kuti can slaughter. Hadalatuya Israel want to include the renegade Jew. Ulam La'am Shatin always slaughter. Ben day or night. Ben Barosh, Ben Barosh is top of the roof. Akoshin slaughter anything, glass, flint, or reed. That makes all sense because also must slaughter. The Mishnah then said except with a harvesting sickle and a saw. One time Shmuel's father made like nicks into the knife and still having to see whether or not it was Pasul for Shahida. Hagam Shadar, when he got back, he made more notches into his back. Shachuda b'megera shlinu. Hamim said back to him that we know that it's disqualified if it was like a saw. That's how much notches he had. And Rambam says, Sakin sheyesh ba pegimot habe, a knife that has many notches. Tidon b'megera is considered like a saw and it's pasul. V'she'en ba ela pigma had has one nick. Ogeret b'zla, if it catches the fingernail when you're passing it over, pasul. B'msu hesechet kishlab, if it catches the fingernail, it's pasul. It's kasher. Sorry, it passes over, it's kasher. Hechidai, okay, what do you mean it gathers it? Hechidai, what do you mean it catches it? Amar bi Elazar, Ogir mishnei ruchot. It's sharp on both sides. Misusechet miruchad, and entangles means it's only pointy on one side. Ma'ishna mishnei ruchot, what's the difference about two? What makes pasul? Timursha kama mahadish, because the first point will go under the hide and the flesh. Umursha batra baza, and then the second point will tear the pipes. That makes it pasul. Miruchad, if that's the case, even one part. Even one point should make it asur. Horufat is a kinam at least because the sharpest knife will cut the flesh. Murshabadan, the point will then tear the pipes. So why is one point now asur? The one says dika imaresha sakina. The notch is on top of the knife, and therefore it won't make it pasul. But if anywhere else would be kasher, anywhere else would be pasul. So if he azam al hashab, if that's the case, then when he it's extended in one direction, it'll undermine it. When he draws it back, it'll catch. The Gemara says, it's one case of a long knife where he did one long extension without drawing it back. Marava. Shalosh min there are three types of things that can happen in a knife. I'll get it if the niche or the knot nick can notch catches the fingernail. Lo yishchad and he can't solder. If it entangles the fingernail, like one point instead of 2 points. You can't do the chatila if it's kasher b'diavad. If the impression goes up and down along the knife, you're allowed to do it because there's no sharp edges. You just told us that the entangling knife problem is pasul. He says it's kasher. The Gemara says la kasha kam b'shuli mavid. It's not a case pasul when he's doing it back and forth because it catches. The second case where it's kasher is where it's one direction, not two. That's why it's kasher because it won't come to rip the pipes. If it's bumpy like an on. There's no the surface of the blade is bumpy, but not the blade, not the blade. Marle, manya he lammi bisrei v'achtin. If someone gives me the meat, I'll eat it, meaning no problem. Mar b'chizda minan the dikat sakin min Torah. How do you know they're supposed to check the knife from the Torah? Shemar ushchatem bazeh v'achaltem. You should slaughter with this seemingly specific knife. Shita. Now, obviously, that's being examined. Given the chinakat terefa, because once we know that if we make it a terefa, it's not a good knife. Buy it. You sure gotta do it. Why do you need to do? The Gemara says, "Lachacham, come here." How are you supposed to show it to Chacham? Amar Yochanan Rabbi Yochanan says, "Lo amru l'rada chatzegin lacham l'bnei shekol shacham." One second, we don't need it pasuk to teach that. The only reason why we're showing it to the Chacham is to give him kavod. The Gemara says, "The Niran, yes, the Niran, ukras alma." It's just the pasuk is a hint from the Torah, but yes, the Niran. And Eretz is checking with the sun, the knife. By the Ra'ab, they would check it with water. They would pass it over the pool to see if any distinctive trails would come from notches. Rav would check it with his tongue. Ouch. Would use a hair to check. We got caught. Besura Mamri, Bisra Achla, the knife, and in Surah it said the knife cuts flesh, Bisra Labdika, and flesh must be, and therefore it's checked with his skin. I asked the Shochet about this, very, very interesting. Jack Scava, if you know him, say thank you for all the information he's been feeding me until now, because I have been picking his brain, he never complained once. But seemingly over here, it tells you how to check the knife with your actual skin. Problem is, we don't know how to do that without cutting ourselves. So he told us that we have a minhag that although we check the knife with our fingernail, which is what we do with halacha, we do have minhag just to tap it along our finger, the skin of our finger, not obviously checking anything because then you'll cut yourself, but because of this Gemara, that's what we do. Super interesting. And I actually noticed Shachet once actually doing it, where he just touched the blade with his finger for like, I'm like, okay, that didn't do anything. Okay, cool. Shout out, Scampus. Amara Papa. The knife needs to be checked on flesh and on a fingernail. Again, like we just said. אמר רבי רבשי, אמר להם רב סמא ברד רבי ששי שח, דאמרת להם משמי דרבה. צריכה בדיקה, ביסרה והטרופה והתלת הזרונות, the knife has to be checked on flesh, nail, and all three sides of the blade. אמר להם, he said back to him, ביסרה והטרופה, I said the flesh and the nail. I thought the rule had the I never said anything about three sides of the blade. ايه كده عملت inversion عم بيسأل بعد super I said flesh, nail, and three sides. مش مدري بعد ما بعدين for Ravaz's name. Ravina Ravaha Bere Ravaha Viatek made Ravashe. I take in the commander Ravashe, Litka, the Burman knife. I'm a little Ravaha Bere Ravai told him, Litka, you check it. But I had to put a bit of put I shut the knife on nail, flesh, and three sides. I'm running to him. Yeshar, good job. Yachem Ravkana, Ravkana says good. Ravina says, Atu Fraba Bisratri, checking your nail and the fingernail and the flesh. I thought that Ruhata doesn't have another three sides. Whereas Milo Amar Rabbi Zeramar Shmuel Ben Sakin, someone because Shmuel said that if someone superheated a knife, which happened and slipped, she took kasher, she held couldn't get up because the sharpness goes before the heat. He's not doing anything. The Kashlam had a problem with that. What about the sides that are not hot? I mean, we said keep it the place of the decisions, cut it, therefore the sides of the knife don't do anything, therefore you have to check it. Hachram Hituhi as well, so therefore you don't check the sides of the knife. Amrav Huna Baraktin Amarabi Shaman Ben Lakish. Shalosh Pigimot, and there are three to the notches that have a problem with Shechita. Pigmat Aitim Bepezach. The notch in the bone of a Korban Pesach, you can't make that. Pigmat Ozim Bechor, you can't make a notch in the ear of a Bechor animal. Pigmat Mum Bekoshim, and any type of notch that has makes a movement in a Korban. If he's the man, after Pigmat Sakin, even the notch in the knife. Where it says Zavida Hakma, that Rishon Lakish did not mention the knife. Kiholin Lo Kamari, you talking about regular things like the knives, we don't talk about kochim. The Kulan, they all hold. The notch has to be equal to the notch that would make it a pasul for the as a korban. This, which was a mizbeach rather, a tiny stone that had a break in there had to be replaced. So that would be the size of the hair as well. The kamak mizbeach, how much heavy would be? Kidesh turbo sipurna much enough that a nail would be stopped by that spot of the rock. That'd be enough to replace it. Maybe a question. Come up in mizbeach. What would be a problem with a broken stone mizbeach? Rabbi Shimon Hamer, Yochai Tevach. The other Yaakov Mer because I seemingly much bigger than the spot of a fingernail. The Mer says lakasha habe sida. Actually, with the lime, a notch in the lime, you'd find Haba Avnab or here talking about a stone. Rahman Min Min.